Weekly. GarageBand Weekly. Ooh. He'll read an answer to your question. John, he'll have a suggestion. He's a fountain of all knowledge. I think he might have gone to GarageBand College. What he doesn't know, we'll try and find out. So join the chat and give him a shout. Hey, John. Hey, John. GarageBand Weekly.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to GarageBand Weekly. On this week's show, it's our special Worldwide Developers Conference 2023. Yes, Apple have just announced a whole bunch of stuff. Some of it's going to be relevant for creators and for GarageBand users. Some of it not so much. We'll get into all of that. If you're watching on the replay, check the timestamps. There'll be a link there to where you can jump into the quick version, the 2-minute sort of overview of everything, as well as a longer explanation where we're going to go into more detail. We are also here live for your comments, for your chatting, for your questions. And if you do have a question throughout the show, all you need to do is put a big Q in front of your comment and I will tag it as a question and I'll answer those throughout the show. How you doing? Hands up who actually watched the 2+ hours of Apple PR speak. Well, yeah, what we're going to do in this one is break it down and turn it back into real language, talk about what actually happened and what went down, and we'll dive into that in just one jiffy. Yes, welcome to the new betting. Ooh, ear. Hello, Kim Harden-Hudson. G'day, Robert Ladser. G'day, John Swanson. Beelzebub, Thomas Christ, DJ Big Red, Mark Bro. Hello to you. Hello to anyone who I may have missed. I hope you are doing well, and I hope you're enjoying the WWDC season. Look, I know I laughed at the front because I didn't want to bury the lead. I'm like, Apple buried the lead. I'm not going to. Yay, Apple headset, VRAR, $3,500 coming later. That's the news. If you just wanted that, then you got it there. Thomas Christ only watched the... See, you got all the stuff that you needed, Thomas, and then you missed the headset stuff, which is fine. Mark Bro took one for the team and watched the whole thing. So why don't we dive in and give you the quick overview of everything that went down, and then we'll jump back in and give you the longer version. So I'm starting with the end. I'm doing the opposite of an Apple. We have the Vision Pro headset. It's coming out in the US next year, later this year. They were very vague about that. It's going to cost you $3,500. It's starting from $3,500. Get that right, not cost, starting from $3,500. And it looks kind of cool. All the ads, it's all over everything. Go and watch it. We don't need to talk about it here. Does it have any relevance for music creation? I mean, Logic Pro in the Air Minority Report style, like air drumming and air guitaring could take on a whole new meaning if you could do, yeah, I don't know. Maybe in the future. We'll have to wait and see. What else did we have? We had the new M2 Ultra chip is coming to town, so that's going to be a cool thing, and a lot of good things going on there. The MacBook Air is now 15 inches. So there's a 15-inch MacBook Air available for those folks that like it a little bit bigger. And we still have the old OG 13-inch MacBook Air and the original M1 MacBook Air if you want to go notchless with your MacBook. So that's a thing. Yeah, this is that was the MacBook Air. That was this specs here. The 15.3-inch Retina display. You got MagSafe charging. You got up to 24 gigabytes of RAM. It's a good unit. I think if you're using GarageBand or Logic Pro, that's the thing to go for. If you just want the best combination of reliability, screen real estate, the MacBook Air 15-inch looks like a pretty good deal. They also upgraded the Mac Studio. So now with the M2 Ultra chip, which has up to 192 gigabytes of RAM, can use 8K displays now, up to 6 of them. It's faster, it's better, it's gooder, all the rest. And as soon as they announced that, I thought, well, this is the end of the Mac Pro, surely. Surely this is the end of the Mac Pro. No, wait. The Mac Pro is back in all of its cheese grating glory. The Mac Pro is back with PCI expansion slots, which is what people have been asking for, so that they can actually add additional cards and the like. So if you are a very high-end, and look, it's probably not for audio folks, but for if you do audio and video and you're a pro, maybe the Mac Pro is where you want to go. There's the Mac Studio. $19.99 bucks, and there's the Mac Pro at $69.99, starting from $69.99. Upgrades to iOS. There's a bunch of stuff. We'll go through those in a little more detail later in the show. iPad OS had a few little enhancements, nothing life-changing and nothing I think that's going to be amazing for music creators. Mac OS, they've named it Sonoma, which is a wine country in California. I've got to say, though, Craig Federighi, we'll talk about it later, he was really funny. I actually quite enjoyed his little routines in this one. So there's some stuff going on there. And audio and home. A few little tweaks to things like AirPods. I'm actually excited about some of the AirPod enhancements, which should make, for someone like me that uses AirPods pretty much 24/7, that's a good thing to see. And then WatchOS has Snoopy. Insert cricket noise here. Yeah. So there's some new things. Look, the overall vibe of the show, it was basically Apple are just dunking on everyone for everything. So they did a little bit more comparison to PCs than they've done in the past. They compared to their old products like they want to do. But if you break it down and you go through all the things that happened, Apple came out and basically said, here's the laptop you've been asking for, 15-inch super thin MacBook Air at a good price. Take that, Ultrabook PC market. They then jumped in and said, oh, here's the new Mac Studio. So just when you thought that, the Mac Studio wasn't for pros, we've beefed it up, we've doubled the RAM, and we've made it super fast with an M2 Ultra chip. Dunk. And then they've said, oh, what? You think we're not going back to the Mac Pro, Johns? Well, we are. Here's the Mac Pro. Dunk. 6 PCI slots, super fast, don't need afterburner cards. They're all built in now. Yeah, they came out and said, "Oh, look, we've got studios for gaming. Mac's going to become a gaming platform. Dunk, take that, PC. Yeah, come and game on your Mac." And then we were just getting towards the end there, like the iOS, iPadOS, WatchOS, and then of course there was one more thing, and the one more thing was, of course, what we've already talked about, which was the Vision Pro. Yes, starring Vision OS, Apple's new OS, which yeah, it was a thing. I'm on the fence. Like, I'm a fence sitter from way back. The way I look at this is that this is like what the Apple Newton was to what the iPad or the iPhone now is. So Apple are good at bringing out products that are. Look, they were doing this whole minimum viable product thing before it was cool, way back in the day. So it has a battery pack. It kind of looks a bit gooby, but in terms of VR headsets, which look like giant nerd helmets, it looks like the least nerdy giant nerd helmet that I've seen so far. So we'll see what it can do in the future. And it is, the one thing I will say is it does seem, from all the advertising I've seen so far in the 4 hours since it was announced, it does seem like more of a consumption device than a creative device. So I don't see I know they showed productivity and they showed people with their screens around in 3 dimensions, but they didn't really talk about being creative. And yeah, you can bring up a keyboard in the air, or you can use your Bluetooth keyboard and mouse it. At that point, I'm like, I don't know, maybe I'm old school, but I kind of like having a 2-dimensional display in front of me. But hey, your mileage may vary, and if you've got $3.5 burning a hole in your pocket and you're willing to shell out for this, I would love you to. Because I'll be sitting back, I'll be the arm. I know I'm normally the guinea pig with this stuff, folks. I can assure you, A, it's not being released in Australia straight away, so I can't be the guinea pig. And B, I'm going to be sitting back watching the iJustines of the world stick this on and tell me how silky smooth, what is it, buttery smooth the graphics are. Yeah, 3.5K for glasses. There you go. And it does double as protective eyewear, and it doubles as a contraceptive because. So, no, don't worry. We won't go down there. So that's our quick view. That's the 5 minutes. Just tell me the facts, man. All the hardware stuff is coming out next week. So you can order it all now. Your MacBook Air, your Mac Pro, your Mac Studio. They're all available to order, and they will be released in a week's time. So you can jump over, and we'll do that because you know what? We always like to do that on these shows. We always like to go and spec out, and I'm really, really keen to spec out a max specs Mac Pro in Australia. I reckon we can top 20 grand. We've never topped 20 grand for a fully kitted out machine here on the show before. I reckon we can get there, which is the price of a brand new hatchback. All right, let's see if we've got any comments from folks who are here live, and then we will dive in a little bit more detail. Most exciting thing for Tom was the PCI slots, but yeah, and that's the thing, having expandability for PCI slots, and let's be honest, If you don't know what that means, you don't need it because, yeah, it really is a pro level thing. So what they were talking about is actual pro studios where they have to put PCI capture cards to pull in 8K streams of video and then encode them live. And they talked about how many of those they could do at once. So, yeah, six pro displays is a good thing. And that again, you can use that with the M2 Ultra chip. It now supports 8K displays as opposed to 4K, and you can have up to 6 of them, which is pretty cool. You'll take two of the nerd goggles. Popped in for a second, saw they used a Tori Amos album on the shot of the iPad. Very cool. Yeah, we did see a little bit, like Tim talked very briefly about Logic Pro and about Final Cut Pro for iPad and said, yeah, this is why iPad's now totally the coolest. And yeah, kind of is. I'll just scroll on down. Hello, Independent, Many, United, anything in the new iPad Pro. So no, so the what you didn't hear there is that there is zero iPad news. Zilch. So we weren't really expecting any because we've already had the M2 iPad Pro, we already had the new iPad 10th gen, we've already had the new iPad Mini 6, the iPad F 5th gen, hard to keep up. So no iPad news and no iPhone news at this stage, apart from iOS and iPadOS. And I've got my notes here. We'll go into the detailed run through of those in just a jiffy. If you do have any questions about this announcement or about GarageBand in general, because this is GarageBand Weekly, but it just worked out that it happened to be today. And I know that most folks who use GarageBand are also Apple users and we're probably keen to find out, hey, is there anything relevant for me in this particular presentation? And the short answer is not really. But let's go back in and go through this in a little more detail now, shall we? So this is the MacBook Air 15-inch, again, starting at $12.99. We'll spec these out later in the show when we go shopping. Get Pete's credit card ready to go shopping. So the MacBook Air 15.3-inch liquid retina display. It's got the M2 chip in there, which has got the 8-core CPU and the 10-core GPU. 1080p camera, so they have removed the potato that they had in the first edition of that, and they've got the 1080p camera, and it is the world's thinnest 15-inch laptop. In fact, I loved it that they said it is 11.5 millimeters thin. They didn't say 11.5 millimeters thick. They said thin, because Apple like to use the positive language. That's their strategy with these things. 18 hours of battery. They did a lot of comparison to PC laptops, as I said before, which is interesting. So they basically, I think they made a comment that it is a huge upgrade on any Intel base. So they were dunking on Intel, they were dunking on Microsoft for the whole presentation, but they said that it's a big upgrade for anyone using an Intel-based MacBook, and it is also the best. There's never been a better time to move to a Mac from a PC. And look, as someone who did that 2.5 years ago, yeah, I agree. But you don't have to say it. Like, come on, be classy. No, they were fine. 6 speaker sound system, 3 microphone array. So you're gonna your sound's gonna be pretty good. Your microphone's gonna be okay if you're doing Zoom calls and the like on there. Touch ID, of course, the Magic Keyboard, and MagSafe charging as opposed to USB-C or Thunderbolt charging, which is a good thing. Keeps your charger separate from your the rest of your stuff. Donald just ordered the AirPods Pro 2. They're great. I have them. They live in my pocket. I use them all the time. So, yeah, we'll talk about the audio stuff in a minute. But the AirPods Pro 2 are awesome. I highly recommend them, even though they're, here in Australia, they're $400. Yeah. Good times. Let's go to the next slide, shall we? So there is the MacBook Air in all its glory, $12.99, and as I mentioned before, $9.99 for the old 13-inch MacBook Air, which is still a great buy. Like the M1 chip, I'm running an M1 on my Mac Mini right now to do this stream, and the M1 chip, ain't nothing wrong with no M1 chip, I must say. Then you've got the M2 MacBook Air, the 13-inch is $10.99, and if you want that extra screen real estate, you're going to go $12.99. Let's talk Mac Studio, shall we? Studio. That's what Phil Collins has just ordered one, and he just got on the phone. He's like, "Hello, Apple." He's like, "I want to order the Studio," and they're like, "No, you're no son of mine." And he said, "Do do 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 do." Can you feel it? We're getting off track. So the Mac Studio, look, I like the Mac Studio. It's a giant kind of nuggety beast. But yeah, they've made it faster. They've added the M2 Ultra chip to this, which is faster. As we mentioned before, you've got 8K displays, support up to 6 of them, up to 8 terabyte storage remains the same, and you've got extra memory up to 192. You still got HDMI on there as well as Thunderbolt 4, so all your connectivity is going to be golden. And look, this is probably going to be my next, when I upgrade the studio, maybe next year probably. I was kind of waiting for the studio to improve itself, probably so I can buy the previous model, because I don't need no M2 Ultra power. Let's be honest, I do audio, and this is the most intense video I do is live streaming, so I don't need the full version. But what it'll mean is that hopefully picking up a refurbed older Mac Studio is going to be a good deal, and that's the good news. Buried the lead there, but the good news for you, if you're looking for a MacBook that's got M1 or the original M2 or a Mac Mini or a Mac Studio, is that those ones are going to go down in price. As the guinea pigs like me and other people buy the new gear, the new hotness, the older stuff goes down in price, and that can only help get more people into more kit, in my opinion. So Mac Studio has had a revamp. It's looking good. Yeah, this surprised me that they actually did the Mac Pro. I know they said they would. They'd refresh the whole line. And I guess they realized that as much as they hype up that Mac Studio, they weren't going to get into back into the Pro Studios. And as you would have seen if you watched the presentation, Apple and Disney, they had Tim and Bob had a little hug, and Apple and Disney are joining forces, which was surprising because they are competitors when it comes to Apple TV and Disney Plus. But yeah, they realize they need to get back into places like Disney. They need to get back into the big studios who need pro level gear. They need the ability to be able to upgrade their hardware and have PCI slots, and this one has 6 open PCIe Gen 4 slots, so you can add in all those high-end cards that also cost thousands of dollars that the pro studios use to capture their video footage. So if you don't know what any of that means, you don't need this. I'm guessing 99.9% of folks that are watching this video and that are watching anything on YouTube don't need this. Because if you need this, you are so busy that your assistant just brought you a little memo, said, new Mac Pro's out. You're like, great, order 7. And then you just hand it back to them and get back to editing the latest Star Wars movie. Baby Yoda needs 10% cuteness enhancement. Gunk. And then you press a button and it happens. So yeah, if you need it, it's there. You can buy it. If you got $7,000, burning a hole in your pocket. Mac Studio from $19.99. We'll price those out in a moment. And the Mac Pro from $69.99, which is a price that you can pay. iOS. What do we got new in iOS? I got a little bit tired at this point. I was impressed by the hardware. I thought it was good to have the 15-inch option for a MacBook Air. It did kind of mean to me, I meant to mention this earlier, it did kind of mean to me that I don't think we're getting a touchscreen MacBook Air anytime soon. As much as I made the prediction that we had as much chance of getting Logic Pro on iPad as we did having a MacBook with a touchscreen, one of those has come true. I'm still not convinced the other is. I think Apple are doubling down on the iPad, and they're saying, if you want a MacBook with a touchscreen, well, that's what an iPad and a Magic Keyboard is. That's my Tim Cook, apparently. Maybe. iOS, what's it got? They talked about these new contact cards. You can do name dropping now, where you can just walk up to someone and tap on them and it puts your little card over to them. Fair enough. You can do check-in. I thought one of the most interesting things from a security point of view, and as a parent, was check-in, because there are times where I do that with my kids. I'm like, text me when you get there. And it's creepy having to turn on tracking and go and see where they are. But if it could just say, I'm going to my friend's house, and then when they get there, it just says, bing, child has arrived at friend's house, or bing, child has arrived at home. That's pretty cool. Live voicemail, the ultimate tool to phone screen. Remember the old days where you'd have the answering machine, and it'll go, believe it or not, George isn't at home, so leave a message at the beep. And then the person would go, oh, hi, it's Pete here from the tax department about your audit. And you're like, and you just leave it. Or it's like, hi, we met at the bar last night. And you're like, oh, hello? Yeah, so you can do that now. You can ultimately call screen. And live voicemail, it transcribes it on the fly. So as the person starts talking, it'll start saying it out there. So it'll say, eat up Martha. And you'll be like, what? Oh, beat up Martin. Yeah, okay, I'm down. So that was interesting. The journal looks interesting as well. I don't know. You can create a journal on your phone. There's plenty of places you can do that. Pets. You can identify your animals for all you furry friends out there. You can have that. There's a bunch of stuff there. None of it's earth-shattering, and really none of it's doing anything for your music or your creative endeavors, as far as I can see. iPad OS. This was interesting. I tried to find something in here that I was going to get excited about. The one thing is probably the external camera on iPad that you can see in the top right corner. That's kind of cool because we've never had that before and we've always kind of wanted it. So the ability to use an now it said external camera from your Mac display, or I'm assuming your MacBook. Now, don't think that that means it's going to extend to being able to use a webcam. So I've always dreamed of a time. I had a dream that I could connect my Logitech 920 or my Logitech Brio to my iPad. I don't think that's what that means. I think I got excited and then I started thinking about it and I'm like, no, they won't do that. It'll be like the whole iPad on Mac. It'll be a cut down version and not what I'm probably hoping for. A heap of updates. You've got the health app there now on your iPad. Predictive text is getting better. Let's be honest, it can't get worse. So predictive text and things like autocorrect are getting better, which is a good thing. And Freeform's got a whole bunch of new tools. And Freeform is something that I've been exploring a little bit lately. I need to spend more time with Freeform. It looks kind of cool. It looks like it could be a good collaboration place for writing songs and for collaborating with people in GarageBand or Logic or whatever you happen to be using. So a lot of PDF stuff. So they talked about documents. So I think they're really that's why I'm saying no touchscreen Mac, because they're really pushing the fact that PDFs and editing documents is all going to be like seamless, like sign your documents and do your things all on the Mac, all on the iPad. And so I don't think we're getting a touchscreen MacBook because of that reason. The Mac OS, as I said, it's going to be called Sonoma. And they talked about game mode, so they really did push pretty hard on gaming. They brought in a guy, and the name of the game was Death Standing, which I'd never heard. I'm not a big gamer, so I'd never heard of it, but apparently it's a big studio and it's a big guy, and he said, I've been an Apple fanboy for years, and I've always wanted to bring my game to the Mac. So yeah, I think that could be Apple's another little side play of Apple is not only we want to get all you PC users over to the Mac, but because they've got the silicon hardware now, they're actually trying to get developers. And it was because it is Worldwide Developers Conference, there was a lot of focus on developers for gaming and saying, hey, we've got this. And they even talked about the fact that there's now like a gamer, what do they call it? A game porting toolkit. And you can already use your Xbox controllers and your PS5 controllers directly on your Mac. And I don't know, I think we're going to see some bigger titles coming to Mac in the near future. Will it take over PC as the gaming platform of choice? Almost definitely not. But hey, they're putting their iron in another fire. Do I see a time where Apple Arcade gets a bump and more like they push that? Well, yes, because they want more people having more services with Apple. So I think that is something coming in the future. Web apps was probably the only other thing I saw there that was very interesting, but again, very little in terms of of stuff for creators, just enhancements. This has been I think they've been spending all their time and all their money on the new hardware, and the software side of things has been very much iterative, evolutionary as opposed to revolutionary. Audio and home we talked about before. They talked about adaptive audio, which is going to be cool for things like AirPods. So I use the AirPods Pro 2, and it's the case that you can be between two modes. There is transparency mode, and then there's the noise cancelling mode. And adaptive audio will basically sort of on the fly sample the audio and flick you between the two, which could be a good thing for someone like me who's often out and about. I'll be walking and then I'll need to take a call, and then there'll be a loud truck driving by, but then I'll need to hear like a bike dinging at me as it's coming towards me as I'm walking down a path. So adaptive audio for AirPods could be good. Pressing to be able to mute is a good thing. So I like the fact that they've added that. This one over here, smart AirPlay suggestions, so it remembers where you want to play. And weirdly, they talked about faster AirPods automatic switching. If they could just make sure my AirPods don't automatically switch to every Apple device I walk past, as someone who has about 5 Apple devices open and working at any given time, I'll be listening to a podcast on my AirPods and I'll walk somewhere near my Mac and suddenly I'm hearing a YouTube video that's playing on the Mac that I didn't want to play. And then I'll try and hit the stop button and it will stop that instead of the podcast. And I'm like, oh God, yeah. So I would love that. There is an option there to say, only automatically switch to this device, don't do it to others, but for some reason it keeps changing and I keep having my things switch. So yeah, there's a few other things that happen there. FaceTime on Apple TV, that's interesting. The fact that they're talking more about airplaying things to an Apple TV, I can see benefits for that for folks creating music. Maybe if you've got like a 40-inch screen in your lounge room, I can't see the latency is going to work though, but it would be cool to be able to like airplay your Logic session to your Apple TV on like your large screen. Did I say large 40-inch? How many people have got only a 40-inch screen these days? Everyone's got like 50 and 60 and freaking 75-inch. It's all happening. And WatchOS, I didn't spend, honestly, I was exhausted by this point. There was too much stuff, but Snoopy's coming to WatchOS. They did talk a lot about health, and I'll give them credit that they talked about mental health as opposed to just physical health. So there are now some apps, there are now some focuses more on mental health and mindfulness and things to actually help. I like the one about the screens, about the Apple Watch using its light sensor to work out how often you're outside and then giving you recommendations saying, hey, hermit, you've been in your audio cave too long. How about you go outside and get some bloody sunshine? And the same for kids. The screens, like having the screens too close to their face, which is going to be damaging to their eyes. It's now got a sensor. It's now tracking. It's now watching your children and everything they do. And then it'll tell them if they've been having it too close to their melons for a long period of time. So that was it. I watched the 2 and a bit hours, so you didn't have to. If you're going to go back and watch anything, watch the chunk in the middle with Craig Federighi. He's the attractive middle-aged grey-haired man who he did a couple of funny things. He actually played guitar in one part where he was talking about the audio stuff, and he pulled out like a 3-necked guitar and playing that. And one of the things that just made me crack up, I actually laughed out loud at an Apple presentation. I'm normally cringing most of the time, but I laughed out loud when Craig Federighi said, "Oh, and now you can have multiple timers on the same screen at the same time." He's like, what a time we live in. And I'm like, that's actually pretty good to be able to have the humility to take the piss out of yourself with something like that. I thought was actually pretty good. So, yeah, summarizing, am I buying anything? Is anything new coming out of this? Well, no, not directly. I like that they're continuing to upgrade the Mac Studio. I think that's going to be the creator machine of the future, because it's somewhere, I think that's what most of us need, something between the Mac Mini and the Mac Pro, where we're going to have enough power, enough grunt to throw a bunch of RAM in there, have a heap of storage, and then have a bunch of ports to plug in all of our stuff. So a bunch of Thunderbolt ports and USB ports and HDMI out and all that good stuff. So yeah, that's probably the most exciting thing for me. They're continuing to evolve the full line there. Obviously no iPad stuff, but we're kind of, where are they going to go with the iPad? They've already got the M2 chip in there. That's kind of been maxed out for the short term. And iPhone stuff we'll get in September and October when they do their usual refresh announcements. So yeah, so some interesting stuff. And look, I know the one thing I haven't talked about much is the nerd helmet, the headset. The proof will be in the pudding there. I'm cautiously optimistic. Like I say, this is version, I won't even say this is version 1. This is version 0.1, I think, of what Apple are doing. And if this, in the end, if they just get something like this, and I put that on there, and I go like that, and I can tap and have my apps and things there while I'm out walking around, as opposed to having a screen in my hand, in my face, or a watch. I think that's where Apple are going with this. I think that is the end game here, is that they are getting in early on what is going to replace the phone. And I know you say, oh, well, nothing can replace it. We didn't have phones before. We weren't carrying around pieces of glass in our pocket that had our entire lives on them. Even when we did start using phones, they were literally communication devices to call people and to receive calls. They have grown into something that most of us depend on, to the point where yesterday, so here's a slight anecdotal story, side note. Yesterday I'm in the Apple store because my lightning port was buggered. I know, the irony of the guy whose #1 video is how to clean out your lightning port has a broken lightning port that can't be fixed with a toothpick. Go figure. So I took it to Apple last week and they said, ooh, yeah, you're just out of warranty, but we'll fix it for you. I'm like, oh, really? Okay, cool. So it was just over 2 years, like literally 2 years and 1 month that I'd had the phone. So I was like, oh, and they're like, okay, we'll do it. So they were going to fix it. I then went back in and they're like, we couldn't. They always do this. They're like, oh, we're really sorry, but we couldn't get the right part we needed. So we're giving you a whole new phone. So they gave me a refurbed phone, which I was Not the happiest about, because if you've ever had to transfer from one phone to another, you will know how bloody long it takes. And, this is first world problems right here. But I had to sit in the Apple store while I downloaded iOS 16.5, while it started the update process, because I couldn't even it wasn't even working because it just sits there doing nothing for a while. So I was in the Apple store for 2 hours just twiddling my thumbs. And it made me realize that how reliant we are. Like, I actually just stood there waiting for my phone to update, and I'm looking around at the people. I'm people watching. I'm checking out some products. I'm like observing my surroundings. I'm like, the fact that this feels really foreign is a little bit of a bad indictment on society, or maybe me specifically, because the fact that I'm not bored anymore, because I've always got my phone, and phones are not for calling people. They're not for communicating. In fact, they're almost for the opposite. They're for excommunicating. They're for crawling inside of our own little shells and doing our own little things. So that's, yeah. Oh, Google Glass was trending on Twitter. That's an interesting one. Yeah. Adam, would be cool to know to throw Logic Pro into the VR headset and then have a full virtual studio control panel, be able to mix an album using your favorite environment, cut an album on Muscle Shoals. Yeah. So that's kind of the future that I would like, is the ability to be able to have. Again, everyone's always wanted Minority Report, haven't we? We've always wanted to use our hands to shimmy things around in the air. And I think the only thing I'd say there is that, I don't know, I'm a tactile kind of person, and I like to have my hand on a fader, or I've kind of got used to the replacement of that being a mouse, keyboard, or touchscreen. I'm just not sure about nothing. And it's not even got like controllers or gloves or anything. There's no haptics whatsoever, no haptic feedback whatsoever. So everything is visual and auditory, which is fine if you're a visual and an auditory person. But if you're a kinesthetic person, if you like to actually touch and feel things, then it could be interesting. I don't know. I agree with you. I think it could be totally cool. I think there'd be applications for it, but yeah, not sure if it's not fully cooked yet. Let's be honest. It's not fully cooked, but I will be really interested. I know, again, you're probably thinking, John, you opened by having the screen up there and laughing at it. Well, yeah, that was just a bit of a bit. Don't worry so much about that. All right. No, I'm not getting the cheese grater. Yeah, definitely not. Yeah, triple deck guitar, including a 12 string. It was epic. I'll try and find a shot of it later, or go look it up. WatchOS 10 looks good. I'm not going to deny that a lot of I didn't mention it there, but the best function. So at the moment in WatchOS, it's very much static. So I have my thing up there that has the time, and it has my steps, and it has the date, but it's very static. And the new one has widgets, so you can sort of scroll up and down. So I could have my world clock, I could have my weather, and I could have my time, and sort of scroll between those. So I think it's going to be cool. 106-inch projector. Well, you're set anyway, Adam. You're all over it. Yeah, the AirPad switching is real. Yeah, I know. The walking around with your AirPods and just having them switch randomly to stuff. It's my bugbear. Death Standing is the main character is Daryl Dixon from The Walking Dead. Great game and graphics. Cool. Maybe I'll check it out. Maybe I'll go down that track if I can start gaming. If they bring NHL 23 to the Mac, I'll be all over it. That's my game. That's my jam. Maybe NHL 25 by the time it gets there. What do you think of the new Apple VR? Yeah, Ricky, I think, as I sort of mentioned, I think it's very early on. I think the external battery pack doesn't thrill me, but I guess neither would have a big, chunky, heavy battery on my head. Yeah, look, the technology's undoubtedly brilliant, and I think if anyone can make it work, it's Apple. I think everyone's watching this. I think Meta are watching this. I think Microsoft are watching this. I think everyone's going, look, if Apple can't make this work, I don't know who's going to make it work. Yeah, exactly, Thomas. We went down the same thing. The old school answer machines picking it up, whether you do it. Freeform is accessible to blind people. Oh, that's cool. Yeah, so vision impaired. And look, they talked a bit about accessibility, and like I said, they talked about health and mental health and other things as well. Hello, Solrak. I hope you are doing well, my friend. I'll be waiting for one with the glucose monitor the next 5 years, they say. Yeah, that's potentially coming. I mean, we didn't ever think you'd have, an ECG on your wrist, but that's available now. So yeah, we will see. Will they have a pre-crime? Very good reference. Deep cut reference there from Leela. A pre-crime. If you see Minority Report, yeah, it's a pretty good movie. It's probably in my top 2 or 3 Tom Cruise movies, but I don't really like Tom Cruise, so that's not hard. Not a Top Gun kind of guy. iPhone will not update to iOS 17. Not yet, no. iOS 17 is coming out in the fall, which means autumn, I think. I think it's American for autumn. But yes, we have to wait a little while for the fall. Yeah, sit down to the VR grand piano. Do 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 do. Maybe. But I don't know. I think air drumming. I think I can see that because, like, how often have you just wanted to be like, I want the thing to go. Imagine if it could combine your mouth drumming of the pattern that you want to hear and your hands to like get the timing and the different drums. Oh, I think that could be cool. Or air guitar solo. I want the solo to go near 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 near, and then it just converts that to an epic guitar solo. I don't know. There's possibilities. You got to look outside the box, don't you? You got to look outside the box. I've heard the new Top Gun's not that bad either. Yeah, September. September's the iPhone month. September's when all the iPhones, iPhone 15 will be released. The Apple people are so funny because I'm in the Apple store and I'm talking about my phone. 'Cause I got the iPhone 12 Pro. I'm always about 2 or 3 iterations behind. And I said to the dude, like, I think one of the reasons he might have done it for me just outside of warranty was I said, oh, look, I'm waiting for September because it's not worth me buying the iPhone 14 Pro now, because the 15 Pro will be out in September and I'll buy that. And he was crunching away doing his things. And then later he's like, oh yeah, so when you do come back in September for the iPhone 15, I mean, whatever Apple called the new iPhone, I'm like, come on, dude. They're not going to call it the iPhone 15, but they're so programmed, like as part of their training, to not ever divulge any information about what may or may not happen. They simply do not speculate. Trevor Bear, having a problem with GarageBand Mac loops, only in one project. Huh. Maybe, I'm not sure. Maybe some more details on that one. What the problem is with the loop. As in it's not going in there, it's not syncing up, it's not showing up, it's not playing back properly. Yeah, there's a few things that you can try on that one. But yeah, if you throw some more details here, I'm sure one of the GarageBand gurus will be able to help you. I'll just leave that one there for Robert. I won't read that one out. Because we all thought it. But yeah, he said it. Alrighty. Arcades need VR piano and guitar for a fun experience. Yeah. See, my kids play this piano game that is so simple. It's just this rhythm piano game, and it's like one of the most popular games in all the arcades at the moment. And it's literally like a single octave piano, and you play along with these things, and the kids are all over it. They love it. So yeah, having more music related gaming could only be a good thing, in my humble opinion. If you've got no other questions or comments for the time being, don't forget this is GarageBand Weekly. You can ask your questions about GarageBand or Logic or Mac or iOS or iPad or iPhone or iPod Touch. I don't mind. Whatever you got, you throw it out there. Just put a big Q in front of your comment. And while you think of any questions that you may have, let's go shopping. Yeah, let's buy some stuff, shall we? Should we do it in Australia? I'm going to do it in Australia because we pay, just consider the prices are going to be about 40% higher for me than they would be for you if you were buying the same stuff. So we're going to jump over to apple.com and we're going to go shopping for some new gear, some new kit. So WWDC 23 is there. If you want to watch the keynote, you can do it there. Let's start with the MacBook Air. So available starting on the 13th. So it's a week away. You can order it now, which is exactly what we're going to do. Let's order us one. So again, as I mentioned before, you can go the 13-inch or the 13-inch with the M2 chip, or the 15-inch with also the M2 chip. It comes in midnight. It comes in starlight. It comes in space gray, and it comes in silver. So lots of variations of very boring colors because it's more of a pro kind of thing. Where's your red one? I'd buy a red one tomorrow because it goes faster. Let's go midnight. Midnight looks good. And you've got the two options here like we've had in the past. This one's got the 256 gigabytes of storage. This one's got the 512. But they both seem to have the exact same cores. Like, I don't know why they had to separate them out like that. Let's just scroll down and see. They got the same charger. That was the difference in the ones before. They got the same number of ports. I don't get it. Like, why isn't this just an upgrade option of that one? They got the same... Yeah, because previously one had less graphics cores, like one or two less graphics cores, but these two seem to be identical, and I don't know why they're different on that one. But let's just select the bigger one because we're going to max this sucker out. So $2,500 out of the box for 512 with 8 GB of RAM. I would almost always recommend, just because I got 8 GB of RAM and I'm starting to feel the pinch, I would go to at least 16. You can go up to 24 on this one now. So it'll be 16 would take us up to 28, which is just under $2,000 American US, or $3,000 for 24 gig. And the storage, you can go 512, 1 or 2 terabytes. You want up to 2 terabytes, it takes you up to $4,000. You can go the slightly beefier power adapter if you want to. I don't know why it doesn't charge you any more for a bigger power adapter. Why would you go the less? Is that just because I've spec'd out everything else? Does it charge you more? No. Why would you? Oh, dual USB-C. Ah, okay. So your 35 watt is the dual USB-C. So that's the one where you can actually plug a second thing in if you get that one. Okay. So they're going, all right, do you want the single one, or do you want the ability to plug something else in? Fair enough. You can go Final Cut Pro and Logic Pro if you want to, but yeah. So $2,500 Australian. That's actually pretty good. I would go with that one. So if I was buying myself a laptop right now, I'd probably go the terabyte. I'd probably kit it out to this. This is probably what I would buy right now. A 15-inch. You go the terabyte of storage. You go 16 gigabytes of memory. Might even bump that up to 24. That would be a powerhouse. Like, I know it's called Air, and some people think, well, if it's got the name Air in it, it's not Pro. This is definitely better than the original, like the OG MacBook Pro, the 13-inch. But of course, if you wanted to go next level, you'd go the 14-inch or the 16-inch MacBook Pro. So that's the MacBook. If you wanted to go and splash out, we'll have a look at the Studio and the Mac Pro in just a jiffy. I have a question with Logic Pro for iPad. I go to pay for it. It comes up with the can't connect to the network. So any ideas? Yeah, maybe try. I mean, you do need a network connection to be able to do that. What I generally suggest when you get those can't connect type errors is to close all your apps, completely turn off, and completely turn back on. So with most iPads, you'll hold down the power button and the power up button, or the power button and the home button if you've got an older iPad. Make sure it completely powers down, turn it back on. Make sure you connect to a reliable connection, so a Wi-Fi connection in your house if you can, or tether it to a phone. That's another thing you can do. Try a different connection and then try it again, because it's basically just saying that the App Store can't connect. The other thing that can be a problem is to make sure that your Apple ID is signed in. So what you can do is go to the App Store, and where it's got your account there, sign out. So completely log out of your Apple ID and then log back in. Sometimes those things can just refresh when you're getting issues with that. Yeah, Final Cut had a similar sort of issue, but I haven't heard of people having issues with Logic Pro. Yeah, exactly as Mark said there. Turn it off and on. Turn it off and on, and then try the log in, log out. And the other thing is, go contact Apple. Apple's support is actually really good. If you've got an Apple store nearby, just go see them. They're actually pretty good. Like, again, they fixed my problem. You can go online and you can do live chats. You can call them. They've got call centers, and the people there are actually pretty good. So I think what a lot of people do is that they dig around the internet, and if you can't get a solution, yeah, sure, try and fix it yourself first. But if you've tried all the logical stuff, pun intended, if you tried all the logical stuff like turning it off and on, like logging out and logging back in, making sure all your apps are closed, making sure you've connected to a different network, reach out to Apple. Tell them the problem, because they want you to sign up. They want you to use Logic Pro for iPad, so they will go the extra effort to make sure that you can get it. So good luck with that one. Should we buy some more stuff? Yeah, let's buy what I would potentially actually consider buying, which is the Mac Studio. So I'm running the OG M1 Mac Mini base model right now. So I'm actually looking for something like this, because look at that. Just the fact that it's got the 4 Thunderbolt ports and the 2 USB ports alone, and I wouldn't have to live the external hub life. Everything can be powered directly through. That's probably enough for me to want to get something like this, because it has all the things. Let's order one. Let's order the new one. So you can go the M2 Max or the M2 Ultra on the Mac Studio. So the Max one's going to start at $3,299. The Ultra's going to start at $6,599 here in Australia. Let's max one out just for fun, just for shits and giggles. So we've got the system on a chip processor there. If you go there's 2 versions of the Ultra. Didn't realize that. There you go. There's the Ultra with the 2432 core, 76 core. Sorry, CPU 76 core. And GPU 32 core. I mean, I don't think it's worth $1,500 to do it, but let's just max it for fun. You can go to 128 or 192 gigabytes of memory. You can go up to 8 terabytes of storage. Yeah, there you go. 13,799. So it'll be around 9 or 10,000 US dollars for your conversion rate there. Yeah, probably not going to go that hard. But it does mean that, yeah, if I went the lower spec, so if I came back and went, let's go to the Mac Studio, auto one. If you went the M2 Max version, yeah, this is more what I would go with. I'd go with the base level there. I'd probably only go 32 gig, and I'd put this up to maybe 1 terabyte. So yeah, 3.6. That's probably the sort of machine that I would need to satisfy myself if I wanted to upgrade my studio computer. Because I wouldn't go with something like the Mac Pro, because this would be overkill for most people, including me. But let's cheese grate it up, shall we? Let's cheese grate it up for a moment. All right, order it. Let's order it here in Australia. Now you can go, it's funny enough, you can go the tower or you can go the rack mount. So that's going to be for people, you know, those people I talked about before that their assistant comes in and says, Apple have released a new Mac, sir. It'd be like, yes, order 7. She'd be like, rack mount or tower? And he's like, what sort of question is that? Of course, rack mount. I want to rack mount them all together. So yeah, that's what they would go with. But we'll go the tower because I'm just one guy. So we'll go the tower there. I'm just gonna jump over here. I'm just gonna jump over here because the StreamYard is telling me that my stream is being a little dodgy at the moment. So when I'm screen, so this is why I need a little bit more. I need a little bit more RAM because sometimes when I'm sharing my screen, it goes a little bit down. Goes a little down. But we'll come back to here. All right, let's go with the big M2 Ultra there. We're going to once again go 192. Can we get this thing over 20K? That's the question. If we add the wheels. Where it's 19,799. If we throw a trackpad and a mouse on there, yes, we can do it. By $8, we've got there. Mark the occasion, the very first time in the history of Studio Live today that we've been able to spec out a Mac that's going to cost more than $20,000. Yes, would you like a Toyota Corolla or a Mac Pro? You choose. That's pretty cool. Okay, I kid, like obviously I kid, but yeah, you can go pretty nuts with this sort of stuff. And again, that would be the studios that they go, yeah, just get me 7, max them out. And they'll be like, that's $140,000, sir. It's like, yeah, I know. Our last movie grossed 14 quadrillion, so I think we can afford it. So that's who that's for, right there. Alrighty, cool. So that's buying all the things, and we can't buy, especially here in Australia, we can't buy the new hotness. We can't even order anything to do with the headset yet. It's not available here in Australia, and probably won't be for a while. Alrighty, that is all I wanted to say. Yeah, I know the Australian dollars is not great, but our cost of living is lower and our wages are higher, and we have free public health care. So swings and roundabouts, Mark, swings and roundabouts. That is going to do it for everything I had to say. We'll give you about 2 or 3 more minutes if anyone has any final questions that you would like to throw my way. Otherwise, I'll let you know a little bit about what's happening in the next week around here. For those Patreon members, if you're a patron of the channel, we have Patreon Live tomorrow, so you get to come and hang out. We have a bit of a casual time, and I'm also recording the first episode of my new series, which is called RTFM, Logic Pro for iPad. So read the full manual. Yes, there's 940 pages, 19 sections, so it'll be a 19-part series, and you heard it first here. If you're a GarageBand user or a Logic Pro user and you're considering Logic Pro for iPad, why not let me do the heavy lifting? Why not let me do the hard work? Because we're going to read all 940 pages together. We'll be doing live demonstrations. I'll be learning as I go, and I'll be hopefully helping some of you learn a little bit more about it. So if you want to see a sneak preview of the very first recording of that, the test run of the first episode, become a patron. StudioLive2Today.com/Patreon will take you straight over there, and you can become one of the patron people for as little as $1 per month. It's a very good deal, if I do say so myself. Rest of the weekend, we have the usual suspects. Got a podcast coming out on Thursday. as per usual. And then we've got Your Music Live on the weekend, as well as another happy hour show, a bit of live acoustic stuff. And we'll be back this time next week for Garage Band Weekly once again. Alrighty, does Logic Pro have the producer's drum kit? Does Logic Pro have the producer's drum kit? Let's have a look. Does Logic Pro have the producer's drum kit? I will add. I don't know. Does anyone else know that? I've not delved in. When we read the manual, Mark, we'll be able to find that out. Maybe that's something that we research in a little more detail tomorrow. If we'll just come in here and have a quick look. If we go in, we'll create a MIDI track and we'll go drums. Let's just search the word producers. Producers? Producer? There's pop producer keys. Yeah, no. Short answer is I don't know. But there is a bunch of drum kits in there. Jade's been doing a lot of drum work, so maybe Jade knows the answer to that off the top of her head. We'll review that in the background and try and find out for you. And maybe we'll do that on Patreon Live tomorrow. Alrighty, that is going to do it for this one, folks. Please, as we say at the end of each and every show, be kind to your wallet, be kind to your bank balance. No. Be kind to yourself, be kind to others, and keep creating. And I'll see you next time right here on Studio Live today. Go Knights, go. Bye for now.